This book began 15 years ago. Can you believe it? This book began with my son John, who lived in Africa, and we were in the backyard, and for some reason I looked at his license and saw he was a donor. And I said, "Oh, you're a donor." And of course, as a mother, your heart sinks for some reason. And as a writer, you begin a story. And he said to me, "Well, somebody should have these great photographer eyes." That was the essence of how I began this story. And that was a long time ago. I started the book right away. It's funny. The process is such an interesting thing. I started it and finished it 15 years later. I think I had the first 8 to 10, 12 pages for all those years. And my children would read it, and my daughter said to me once, "This is the best thing you've ever written, you know," and I thought, will I ever finish it? And I think I took it all this time to finish because it was a very hard subject. Loss of this kind is very difficult, and it's hard on a writer. We're not really disconnected from our work. We're very much there. So the process was longer than most things take for me, I must say. In this family, it seems that when they have a baby, they kind of bring it home and let the whole family raise it. It's like a village raising a child, this family. And so when Edward comes, there is something about Edward that touches Jake, who's the narrator, and he falls in love with him immediately, and there's something about him. And as Edward grows older, there is something about him. He's very kind, and he's very quirky, and he's very observant. He sees many things and comments on them. And so one friend of mine read this, and she said, "Do you think he's too good a child?" And I said, "I think he's kind of a magical child." And so he's kind of the spark around which this whole story revolves. It begins with Edward's eyes, and it ends with Edward's eyes. And I had that title long before I actually wrote the book, and I'm not sure why I named him Edward, except Edward's eyes goes together. It's better than Bobby's eyes or Bruce's eyes. So it's so funny how we get to things somehow. I'm a great baseball fan, which probably you can notice from reading this book, and I'm a great admirer of the knuckleball, which is a very quirky pitch and hard to do and hard to ascertain, and in a way it's kind of like life, so that's kind of my little metaphor for this family. I like this family. I was an only child. I still am, of course, and I had many cousins and many extended family members who came because they loved my parents, and lots of friends. So it wasn't that I was bereft of siblings, but I think that there's something about brothers and sisters that is really important to me, and so I created them. And when I was little, I had imaginary friends, and now that I'm this age, I write them in books, and so I create siblings I really like or would like to have. So this family comes out of my great wish for a family. I like the mother because she's independent and a little free-spirited, and they're so good to their children, and they treat them with respect, and the children actually treat each other with respect. So I guess this is my wish fulfillment for a family, and I have kids like this in a way. When I write a picture book, I know that I am looking at a 5-year-old reading this, and so I write without a complexity of language. Adult books have complex languages, and I think when you write a children's book, what you're really doing is communicating the essence of an experience without all that language, and that's actually very hard. That's what I strive for anyway. I notice that in the books where I have handled difficult subjects, I get many phone calls. In the book Journey, for instance, a mother abandons a family, and that's a very tough subject, and kids are always calling me on the phone about that book. And I think when I call them back, I find it's because they're living with a grandparent or a father or a mother and have been abandoned. Children very often look me up on the Internet, and when their parents leave the house, they call me up long distance, and I always call them back, and there's a reason they call. And one child called last week and said, "Hi, my mother knows you and says you're really nice. So how can I say, don't bother me, I'm in the middle of a chapter?" So, it's my readers, and I love the connection with them because when you write a book, you send it off to adult editors, and it goes to adult publishers, and then it goes out there, and until you hear from your true fans and your true subject audience, you really don't know what children think about it. So I love that. And a child wrote me recently and said, I hear you're married, I'm not. How is it? You know, as if I know everything. And one little boy wrote and said, Sarah Plain and Tall, for instance, is the second to the greatest book I've ever read. And I was just dying to call him up and see what the first was. So we have this little communication, children and I, back and forth. Children deal with these big issues every day. And so we who write for them owe them kind of the truth without being condescending. So I try to be as honest as I can, and I try to really write through the child's voice. I have this connection to childhood. I remember what it was like to be a child and how it felt, and the things that were horrifying and the things that were scary and the things that were joyous that maybe adults had no idea were joyous. So it may be that connection which helps me write tough subjects for children.